fees that could cost you at the end or your family, because now you've got either siblings fighting with one another because you weren't clear, you didn't say what you wanted. We have a lot of people who name one child on the accounts and they say go and share it with everybody else, and you know what's going to happen after that. They're not going to share. So you have to really understand that everything that you do, it could be for the most part you have a straightforward estate, but just know that sometimes the ramifications are later when you're not thinking about it at that time, and then your children and your loved ones are basically going to be impacted. I'm just curious, how many of you are non-US citizens here? 1, 2, 3, okay. Green card holders? Or H1, okay, but H1.
140 is like the process.
Okay, so be careful, guys. You guys have some slight different taxation issues that you have to be aware of. A lot of times people will get really upset with me when there's, not really for you, but the green card holder sitting there, husband and wife, you guys cannot transfer money freely between one another. And that is something that they're like shocked to hear about, because there's a whole taxation issue that you have to report to the IRS if you go beyond $150,000 of money that you pay with, you give to your spouse. But anyway, I'll go through that later.
I have a question. So in case of like single marriage, both husband and wife, like after they die, naturally the property is inherited by the kids, right? Without the will.
Depends. So let's suppose you had, in a straightforward marriage, one spouse, children from that marriage.
Yeah, that's it.
Everything, when the one spouse passes, it goes to the other.
Okay, so in case like both
But if the
spouse,
second
like,
spouse passes away, it should go to the kids, but it will go outright, right? There's no, if you don't have a will in place which says when you want them to inherit.
after 18 they should get it, right? After 18, like generally.
Sure. Actually, no, even below 18, right? They're entitled to the money.
Okay.
So, your question is a good one, right? If you have a straightforward marriage, one spouse, children from that marriage, everything according to New Jersey law, remember it's state specific, so if you move to a different state, you may have different rules. So I'm licensed in New Jersey and New York. In New Jersey, everything passes to the spouse, and if the spouse is not there, it goes to the kids. There are a couple of problems with, I'll kind of wait and as I go through my slides just to tell you what the pros and cons of each thing are. But I'll change the facts a little bit. Are you married, sir?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have kids?
Yes.
You have kids. Let's just presume he did not have kids or you did not have kids, right? Same facts. Husband, you get married. God forbid something happened to you yesterday. Who do you think the assets will go to? Your money, who do you think it will go to?
The spouse.
No. So according to New Jersey law, you have to share it with you. He has to share the money with your parents. So if you didn't want that to happen, a lot of
my parents are like India, they are not US citizens. Even in that case, it goes to them. Okay.
because they're legal heirs of part of your estate. He's entitled to some of it. It's a formula, and unless you specify in your will what you want,
But
if you
in the
say,
case like we don't have kids.
in the situation where you don't have kids. If you have kids, everything goes to. But I will tell you, if your kids are anything like how my son was when he was 18, you do not want him to get all of your assets anymore. All right, so let's kind of talk about what's the last will and testament. This is really a document that gets triggered upon when somebody passes away. Everyone knows that this document is the one that's opened up. It's read by who we call the executor. The executor is the manager of the estate. That person you nominate under your will takes the will, the original will, so be careful. You need to know where the documents are. And Pinky, you were talking about you don't know. This is something that we take really, really, we stress and emphasize. Both spouses have to be there at the meeting for every single meeting that we have. We have about 4 meetings from start to finish, and we want the spouses, whether it's a husband or wife, to know not only what the documents are and how things are going to flow and what their wishes are, but where your assets are.
Correct.
What assets do you have? So we create a spreadsheet, we make sure everything is listed on a spreadsheet, and you basically have control of that spreadsheet to be able to say, okay, this is what we have now, and then every year you need to keep that updated, because as things change, you need to make sure that it's updated.
I have a question. So what do you exactly term as estate? Like
Yeah, and actually is a really important, I don't know if my slide had that, but a lot of people think estate planning is for the wealthy. Estate planning is nothing more than what you have and who it's going to. So whether you think your $5,000 checking account, that's all you have, is important for you to pass down to your heirs, you have to do some estate planning. Whether it is a simple will, or whether it is doing some sort of planning with your assets to name beneficiaries, or you want to do something which will kind of ensure they get it, or whether you do some advanced planning, you have to just make sure that whether it's 10,000 or 10 million, you have to get some planning done. And estate planning in our world is a will and or a trust, and I'll talk about a trust in a bit, a financial power of attorney, and a healthcare power of attorney. So these three documents complete your estate plan. The will takes care of what happens upon death. The two other documents take care of who should speak to the banks if you become incapacitated. If you're in a coma, if you are stuck in the hospital and you're not able to speak, who's authorized to go to the bank and withdraw your funds so that they can pay your bills? That's your financial power of attorney. There's a healthcare power of attorney. Who should talk to your doctors if something happened to you? If you, even your spouse, would not be able to speak on your behalf, if, generally there's somewhat of an understanding in the hospitals where the doctors are, if it's an emergency, they say you say you're the spouse, they tend to believe that. But let's just say that, it wasn't the case, right? You have people coming saying, you should not be talking to him. We've had cases where we've had families call us where they say one sibling is saying the other sibling is going and stressing mom out in the hospital. We don't want that person coming and speaking to mom because she's getting stressed out. So if you don't have a proper financial healthcare power of attorney, doctors are going to stop and they're going to say, you need to go and get yourself an expensive guardianship process to get yourself appointed as a guardian of this person before we can even release information to you.
Correct.
So it's really, really important to have these three sets of documents. The will, if that's what you're doing. If you're doing a trust, you need an additional trust, will, financial power of attorney, and a healthcare directive. Okay, so that's your basic estate planning. I know today's seminar was all about homes, and I wanted to try and focus on the home
It's a
little
part
bit
of
more.
home too, I just dealt with it, because she didn't had a will, she couldn't sell a home. She was a homeowner, but she didn't know anything about what's happening.
Yeah.
So
So Pinky, you missed this part of the conversation where Deepak enlightened us about why there was a problem, and the problem was that it was titled tenancy in common, and they hadn't taken that additional step to make it tenancy by the entirety.
Yep.
So when I heard you, making sure you tell your families when they buy their homes, make sure the one important thing is when the deed is created, you should make sure that the deed, as long as this is what the husband and the wife want, has whoever, Deepak and Pinky, comma, husband and wife. That's it, because with that gets what we call the tenancy by the entirety status, and that automatically passes to the other. You don't even need to probate it. You can go years later, you could still have the deceased spouse's name in there. As long as you're married, you can sell the house. There is no, in fact, it is, the spouses are not expected to go and change the deed to make it to their name.
That's good to
So
know.
that's something that
So
you.
what happened in that case, and this in 15 years I never experienced this because I deal with simple husband and wife case. She was my neighbor at probably age 50 or something. They got married, and they bought the house first a year before,
Yeah.
and after 1 year they got married, legally married, and they lived there 20 years. The husband passed away, and now she said, husband, cousins, kids, they never even asked him, what he's doing. He's dying, I'm taking care of it. And now we are selling the house, and now this comes in the title search that they are in tenant in common. They are not set up as a husband and wife. And she's afraid the title company will not release all the money. It will go to his estate, half money, and the wife gets half money. Now it's 400,000. So she said, I'm only left with 200. I'm 80-year-old. Now what? So, that type of situation should never happen. We did not know because we never had a situation like this. So that's why I thought, she would be very, very important. And in general, estate planning, probate, very, very important. So please, sorry, I
No,
didn't
no,
want to take the time.
absolutely. No, in fact, the interesting thing about this tenancy by the entirety status, people have so many misconceptions about it. But tenancy by the entirety means you actually own the house 100%, just by virtue of you being husband and wife. So you'll find a lot of doctors, we see this a lot, they'll come to us and we'll be doing their estate planning and we'll say, okay, you gotta give us a copy of the deed. And they would have put it in, let's say it's a husband doctor, they would have put the house in the wife's name. Why? Because they think if they're gonna get sued, the house is gonna be impacted. Such a bad mistake. Because in fact, what they did is they broke the tenancy by the entirety status. And now if the wife got into a car accident, classic whatever, where they get sued for more than that, the insurance coverage, now that house is exposed. Rather, if they had kept it as tenancy by the entirety, if the creditor comes after the house, they can't touch the house because they're coming after the husband, but the wife owns it 100%. So that's an important misconception that people have. They think, oh, I have to transfer it in somebody else's name. So be careful, especially when you do asset protection. You have to really do it intentionally and you have to know what you're doing. A lot of people just do some, really, really, errors that will adversely impact them and their families. But this part I think is a very important, for me I think this is really important because a lot of people are confused about, first of all, what's probate, what is that whole process, and what's the difference between probate and non-probate? Maybe you haven't even heard the term. How many people know what non-probate means? No? So it's very important to know that if you have something that's a joint account, something that is a TOD or POD, I said, which is transfer on death or a payable on death, if you have a beneficiary designation, everything is non-probate. So what does that mean? It doesn't even go through the will. So your life insurance, where we talked about, if the house, somebody passes away, you've got life insurance where you've named the spouse as a beneficiary. The spouse doesn't even need to go and probate the will because now the life insurance company will give her a check for whatever the amount of the insurance is outside of probate. So we call that a non-probate asset. So a lot of our Indian families will say, I have everything jointly owned with my spouse. I have life insurance that has a beneficiary. I've got my spouse named. Hopefully all of you have named primary and then contingent. Do not skip over the contingent because God forbid something happens to both husband and wife. You always want to have a contingent. So you want to name your children down there as the contingent beneficiaries. And then they've got retirement assets, primary and contingent. Great. Do they need a will? No. Everything goes to the other. But here's the problem. If we all had a crystal ball as to when death would happen, I wouldn't be in business. Because if something happened to both husband and wife, let's say they're traveling to my office, both of them, and there's a car accident. Now what happens? Every single one of their assets have now become a probate asset. So be careful in thinking about how you want to when we look at somebody's estate, and when we're looking at assets, we're looking at homes, we're looking at life insurance, we're looking at retirement accounts, we're looking at stock accounts. If Drew is investing your money, I'm going to be looking at what kind of investment account, money markets, what do they have, and can they go by beneficiary designation? And if they go by beneficiary designation, now my next step is, how do I want my assets to go to my loved ones? How do I want it to go to my spouse? I have a lot of youngsters here, so you may be worried, what happens if my spouse passes away? If I pass away, my assets go to my spouse, what if he gets remarried? Now, I've got a new wife who's going to come after the money, and what happens to my kids, right? So there's a question that has to go through your minds to say, okay, and that's what we try to bring out at the table when we're talking to our clients. We're saying, what do you want? We have a lot of families. I had one 70-year-old couple, cutest couple ever. I was so sure they were going to say, oh, everything goes to the other. And immediately the wife said, of course not. The minute I die, this man is going to go and marry a 25-year-old bimbo. And so, there you go. So you have, and this is where not one plan fits the other. Go ahead.
No, my question was someone is living together for 7 years, 8 years, they're not married. does either one of them have any control or legally New Jersey law obligated
You
to any
just
assets?
gave me such a, all of you are giving me such ammunition for my speech, because that is actually the worst kind of case as long as you're a New Jersey resident. Why? Because New Jersey, so we talked about taxes, right? I'm not an income tax expert. I know enough about gift taxes as it relates to estate planning, and I know enough about capital gains as it pertains to estate planning. My world is all about estate taxes. What's an estate tax? It's a one-time tax imposed on the death of a resident. If you're a US resident, you are subject to federal estate taxes upon your death. If you are a New Jersey resident, starting 2018, New Jersey took away its state estate tax. So we do not have a state estate tax, so we're only worried about federal. Now here's the problem with what Neil asked. Neil said, if two people were living together, do we have anything to worry about? Do they have any control? Well, in New Jersey we say, there's one tax that they left on the books, and that's what's an inheritance tax. So what New Jersey said is, if you are a spouse, a parent, a child or grandchild, or stepchild, you can have assets and you're considered a Class A beneficiary, no estate tax, no inheritance tax. But the minute you become a niece, a nephew, a girlfriend, or a boyfriend, now you're in a different class, you're not a Class A anymore, and depending on Class B, Class D, Class E, there's a formula, and you have to pay an inheritance tax. So that same couple, unfortunately, tell them to get married. We love them to have no taxes amongst themselves, but that's an inheritance tax, which is not a great sort of consequence. But here's a little tip, since this workshop is all about giving value. The insurance people out here, if you can get life insurance for each other, where you name the other person as beneficiary, life insurance is the only asset, one of the only asset, that will transfer inheritance tax free to the other one. So maybe as a leverage to the, whatever percentage inheritance tax they have to pay, they should just get some insurance. Great question. All right, so we talked a little bit about taxes. I'll just tell you a couple of things related to this because it may be important to you. It's not about a home, so I don't want to spend too much of time. We talked about estate taxes. We said New Jersey does not have an estate tax, but it does have an inheritance tax. There's some misconception about gifting, and I'll just spend a few minutes on that. We all have 2 coupons. One coupon is an annual coupon. That means you can take this coupon and make gifts, one per person every year. Today, in 2024, that coupon is $18,000. So you can make an $18,000 gift, not have to report it to the IRS, and you can make one gift per person per year. So are you father and son?
Yep.
You can make a gift to him for $18,000. No problem, no taxes, no reporting.
But either one person has to, whoever is paying has to pay taxes, not the receiver.
No. In the US, unlike in India,
No,
in the
US
US,
I'm talking.
donor is the one. The donor, the person who makes the gift, is subject to the taxes.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Oh, okay, I thought I heard you say
Okay.
receive.
Okay.
So in India, it's the opposite. In India, the receiver has to pay, but here in the US, the donor is the one who's responsible for reporting. So, but here's why I brought up the coupons. There's that one coupon of $18,000. There's a second coupon, which is a lifetime gifting coupon. And that coupon is, now by the way, this is all federal. New Jersey doesn't have a gift tax, so we don't have to worry about New Jersey. But in federal government standpoint, they have a $13.6 million coupon right now. So everyone who gifts more than $18,000, you don't have to worry. You just have to report it to the IRS and say, IRS, I'm deducting this extra amount from my $13.6 million. Next year, that's going to go down to $7 million. We think, we don't know, it's all based on what the government decides, but just keep that in mind as a planning technique that we as estate planners, we're always looking at for the high net worth clients. But I won't spend too much of time on that because today we're talking about the home. So planning for your home. We already talked about tenancy by the entirety, and Deepak already told you about the downsides of TIC, the tenancy in common. The girlfriend, the partners who are living together, they have no other choice but to be tenants in common. There could be some ways to title the property JTWROS, which is joint tenants with right of survivorship. But the point of the matter is, they may not want that. They may want 50% going to their family and the other 50% going to the, each other's family. So it's more about figuring out what they want. A lot of you were talking about investment properties. We are a little worried about for us, it's all about creditors. So we are looking to making sure that your investment property is in an LLC before you do any planning. So a lot of people who come to us with investment properties when they're renting this property out, a lot of them will say, oh, it's in my husband, it's in joint names. And now here is where the tenancy by the entirety protection is useless, right? Because it's an investment property, both of you are investing. If somebody slips and falls and they sue you and is suing you above the insurance, now they are gonna come after your personal assets. So rather than that, shield it with an LLC and put it in an LLC, and now you can do some additional planning with that. I want to talk about trusts a little bit because here also there's a little bit of misconception. How many of you know about trusts?
I heard about it, I'm reading about it, but
Don't know enough? Okay. Anybody interested in trusts? Because I don't have to talk about it. You're interested, but it's one person. Anybody else interested? Okay. All right. So trust, the minute people hear the word trust, they think, okay, that's good. I've got everything in a trust, it's protected. I am good, I can sleep at night, I can get peace of mind. Unfortunately, not all trusts are made equally. So we have 3 types of trusts. If you could go to the next slide, please. This is, I think, too many words and too small, but I will kind of try and say, this is what I was trying to say here. There's 3 parties to a trust. There's the person who set up the trust, and I'm going to refer to this as like a bucket or like sometimes I call my revocable trust cookie jars, but it's nothing more than a container, right? So somebody created that, that's a trust. Somebody manages that, they get to take the stuff out and hand it over. If they are the beneficiaries also, they get to take it for themselves, that's the beneficiary, or they can have other people who are the beneficiaries, right? That's basically a trust. But there are living trusts and there are testamentary trusts. So a living trust there are 2 kinds, there's revocable and irrevocable. Revocable means you can change it throughout your lifetime. Irrevocable means stop, you can't touch it, there's certain restrictions. Now irrevocable could also be for something that's created upon death, and that's a testamentary trust. So our wills, for example, if you wanted to draft your will up, how old are your kids, by the way?
8 and 5.
8 and 5, okay. So you definitely do not want them to get it at 18 because you do not know how these kids turn out to be at 18. I'm telling you, my kid is now 30-year-old, my baby who is at 18, he was only playing Xbox, and he would have bought Xbox games with all of my money if I had passed away. But the point is, in your will, you can design, you can say, if something happened to me, I wanted to go to my husband. If something happened to my husband, I wanted to go to my kids. But I want them to get it at certain ages. I don't want them to get it outright. Classic, age is 25, 30, 35, or sometimes people will say 20, 25. But you have up to 3 ages that you can stagger the money, and you can have these wills go to them. Now, that is a trust. You're designing a trust to be in place after death. And those trusts are called testamentary trusts, and they're always irrevocable. That means once you die, you've formalized your intentions in this document, and you've kind of set the stage, and it's really going to be hard to change. Irrevocable living trusts are the ones that most of you in the room would probably be interested in, because that's the one that gives the most asset protection. You put it in, you do some gifting. Some jurisdictions you don't have to gift, but for the most part, if you're a New Jersey resident, you're setting up a New Jersey irrevocable living trust, you do it for 2 reasons. You're trying to save on estate taxes. That means you have more than $36 million $26 million in, wait, did I get that? 13.6 times 2, I'm horrible at math, but 13.6 times 2 million, right? But next year it's going to be 14 million because it's 7 times 2. So if you have more than that in your estate, then you want to think of setting up irrevocable living trust. Or if you're worried about creditors, then you would set up irrevocable living trust, okay? Now, so one thing to keep in mind is once you gift, you are the one who created this, you cannot manage it. You're done. That's the trustee. You have to give that role to somebody else. You cannot be the beneficiary. That has to be somebody else. So irrevocable living trust, when people say, I'm getting sued, I want to set up a trust. One, you can't do that, it's too late. But two, if you did that ahead of time, you have to understand that there are restrictions placed, you can't be the beneficiary. Now, I want to talk about one important one for the home, which is why I spent a little bit of time explaining this trust, and that is for Medicaid planning. So I'm an elder law attorney as well, so I do estate planning and elder law. And elder law means that I'm helping my elderly clients, like that 80-year-old, who may not have had enough money to cover some long-term care event. So I didn't hear from the insurance folks today about long-term care insurance, but I'm sure there's some aspects of that you do. But if they don't have long-term care insurance, or if the long-term care insurance is only for a few years, which is pretty much all of them are, then the worry is, do you have enough money? Has Drew made enough money for you to be able to manage a horrible health event where you go into a facility, you need to get somebody to take care of you when you're at home. Basically, you cannot do your ADLs, your activities of daily living. And so for many people who are in their 70s, sometimes 80s, we actually will set up irrevocable living trusts for their homes or for their assets, where we can do it as a pre-planning. We're planning for the future, and we're planning to safeguard some of, especially their home, which is their most prized asset. We're sheltering it from, God forbid there is a long-term care event. They now, 5 years later, if they need to apply for Medicaid, and not Medicare, so this is Medicaid, that house, the equity in the house, up to a certain amount, it's about $1 million, but that is protected outside of Medicaid's reach. So they can still qualify for some important government benefits. And I love this type of trust because when we do this for our clients, they get to live in the home. We have the deed changed a little bit to give them a use and occupancy right to live in the home, but the home is owned by a trust. And this particular trust, it's not planning for creditor protection, not planning for estate tax saving, it's only planning for Medicaid. And Medicaid and the IRS have two different beasts, so be careful whenever you're doing any sort of planning. Don't think everything, like all the laws are the same. You have to make sure that you get the right advice and to be able to understand when you have to do this. And usually it's for your elderly parents who are living here, who have a home and who are worried about, that's all they have. And they're quickly going to have to spend down their money on some long-term care costs. So this is where we help them with some of the planning.
I have a question.
Yes.
I've heard 5 years in advance. Is it 5,
Yes.
10?
5.
5.
They're
Okay.
thinking of upping it to 7, but it's going to be a long way off before they do that.
Very important. I've had friends' parents. They own assets. They went into a care facility. They got the equity out of the house. I mean, they basically have to spend all their own money before Medicaid kicks in.
And that's the problem. Medicaid planning is very, very complicated. It's only, and unfortunately for all of us living here, we may be heading in that direction ourselves, but we also have heard of, like, even if we plan, right, and we've got parents who live here, if you do something where you leave money for your parents, you could jeopardize them and their assets. So you have to be, and their Medicaid eligibility. So you have to be really, really careful. Bottom line in all of this, I hope I conveyed, that this is not something that you want to do, you don't want to DIY it, you want to really think through what your specific circumstances are. Maybe initially it's okay, you've got, a small enough estate that you just need a simple will. You don't need to do something really comprehensive, but you need to know what you don't know, because otherwise you may just end up causing a lot of problems. The one big thing that I will leave you with is, I had someone who had gone to LegalZoom, come up with a will. She was actually in her 80s. She came to me and we were like looking at her will to say, she said, I have this will and I don't want to spend all this money to come to you. And so we looked at her will and she had designed it. She had gone to LegalZoom and done it. She had 2 things that I looked at and I was like, oh my God, if she had passed away, one, she did not waive what we call, there's a very, very simple line in the will that says, I hereby waive the bond requirement of my executor. No one knows about that, right? Because if I had asked you, how many of you would have known about that? Right? that is such an important line in your will, because if your executor goes to the the courthouse to get admitted, to get the will admitted, if that line is not there, he or she would have had to pay $2,000-3,000 to get the will, to get bonded, because otherwise that, it's a very important phrase. So that was missing. And the second thing that was missing was she said, when I die, I want everything to go to my sister and her kids. When she came to me, her sister was not alive. And there was no provision that says what happens after that. So very, very important for us to be looking at, when you go to a mechanic, he or she will go under the hood and see what's going on, because you're leaving it to the experts to do the work. So my suggestion is stay in your lane, do what you do best, but for things like this, just make sure that you go to the right people.
No ChatGPT.
No ChatGPT, please.
Oh my God.
Even a lawyer got into trouble because of ChatGPT. So, all right. I hope that was helpful. Any questions? No.
Good job.
Thank you.
And another question.
Now, I will say I do long-term care insurance.
Oh, good. So, long-term care insurance is a great thing for people like me when we're planning, because let's say you do a 3 or 5 year long-term care insurance a plan, then I will help get their assets protected so that in 5 years the insurance would have paid out, and then in the 6th year they can start getting Medicaid benefits. So
Is your contact here?
it's actually over there. There's some.
Well, I will send all these slides to you through email. I have all of your email. I don't know if I have your email. Did you register? Okay, then I will send everyone all the slides and all of their contact information. So if you need any detail or want to discuss anything personal, you can contact everyone.
There's some pouches out there which have some
Yeah,
pads
please
as well.
have
so
all the
help you
goodies
that.
from everyone. So, but I just gave you like the folders. But
I love your house.
thank you.
It's so cute.
Thank you. You take one.
Yes.
So, any questions to anyone that you have? But it was very nice, interactive. I appreciate you all coming, and thank you to all the speakers. It was very nice. It was very interactive and very informative. I think it was a lot of information to squeeze in one. I would suggest that make one goal at least for yourself and your family that you are supposed to do either once a year or like 2 goals for a year, small, long-term and short-term goals, because this is very important. I know we have squeezed a lot of information. Every topic I think can be expanded into one seminar each. But if you want to talk, we can have them sit with you either on Zoom or in person, or you can meet them directly. Okay, this is all the resource that we are bringing into you guys. So
Thank you.
Thank you so much everyone for
No, thank you for
coming.
coming also.
Please
I
do
think they
give
can
us
all
your
use a beer
feedback,
now.
Please do give
Yeah,
us your feedback,
this is the first time the home
so-
buyer we are doing. Home sellers and home buying seminars we have done several times, in person, like with many of you. But homeowner, I was like, because when we saw all those difficulties that homeowners over time, like we help you buy this home, right? But now what? And when people like our home buyers, like then they come to us again, then now we want to sell, and now we see the difficulties of like we should educate, because there's lack of, that's what we found, that there's a lack of education, lack of knowledge.
People
Because
do- No, sorry.
people see a lot of from ChatGPT, from Google. I can write anything like on Google, or I can make a blog, but who's writing that? There's not right resources right there. So as Rekha said, go to the professional who they're best at, so that's very important. They are there for a reason. There's industry for a reason. So I hope we provide some value tonight, and we are thankful that you came tonight, leaving your kids back home.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So food is there, so please help yourself, and if you want to have any questions, please
Yeah.
and please give us a feedback how we can improve on that. If you want something different next time, let us know.
For that bonded
Okay.
thing. Yeah, I didn't even know it.
Thank you everyone.
No, I had an attorney messed it up, but I was like, I didn't think to check on that.
I can
everyone.
make a card because I
did.
think we got it.
Oh, you got it? Okay, yeah, we should get
We
together.
should, because I think we need to explore a little bit of, can you a mortgage
The answer is Yeah, I just have to dig up the, I haven't done one for.
Once I get everybody back there. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, now I still got information.
Depends on the lender.
Yes.
But, yeah,
Yeah.
the big banks are a nightmare.
Yes.
Well, I just saved, I call them rescue loans, where another lender says, yeah, we can do it, weeks and months go by, and they finally, no, you can't do it, the loan's denied. And that's what happened to his client. I picked it up, wasn't sure if I could do it, but we could, and we closed in 2 weeks. So, yeah. Or Jersey, Jersey.
That would be the most beneficial because your mortgage
I haven't been there for years, not so much. Oh, cool.
plus then manage
Now, how far is
there.
Princeton from here?
uh,
Okay, because I thought at first this was in Princeton, but I didn't realize it was at the office. So. Actually, I have an office in Bridgewater. I'm never there. For meetings and stuff. Yeah, same kind of thing. I usually just work from my home office or my car, that kind of thing. So I'm driving around on appointments.
Have some money for the initial
I have put my card. Here you go. Here's some cards. I'll hand them
So
out.
like in our one of the bathrooms, we just hear the drain sound through the walls and it is flushing. So what it could be like leak or something is draining down the pipe. We are
In your
hearing the
house?
sound, yeah.
It's just probably the plumbing. It's just the plumbing. The pipes, they don't have like enough insulation or something, and it's it's a PVC pipe, so the water goes through there. It makes a noise.
So is it like worried or it's
No.
so can we
see
just
any
do the
leak?
insulation or no leak? We don't see it, but
You don't
we
need
just
to
hear
worry
the
about
sound,
it. Yeah.
sound when it is flushes.
I don't think you can do anything about it.
Oh, okay.
It's gonna be too much work to open it up, and it may or may not even happen.
So
Thank you.
in case there is a leak,
There is a leak.
how to know it whether there is a
Because
leak inside?
you will see in the wall, you will see in the floor, it's getting mold, water or some dampness. That's when you will know.
So this is like no problem.
Yeah.
And about renovating the house, renovating
But you missed the
bathrooms
pizza.
in case we are just
Yeah.
want to
Now you
change
can-
it, all those things. Do we have to get permission from the township?
If
Just
just the flooring,
flooring repair.
repair, like flooring, some minor repairs, painting you don't need. But if you're changing heating and cooling system, if you're changing the water heater, then you should take permit. Major, big items. If you're just renovating the kitchen like flooring, you don't need that. You just need some big, like if you change the roof. In your case, you don't need to worry about it because it's a condo townhouse. But in the single family house, you should take the permit. So that way they make sure the person is doing a proper job. They are not cutting corners, they are doing up to the code.
Oh, yeah, it's inside.
The material is better, it's not like bad material they are using that's not like standard for that type of work, and they are putting it, you don't know as a homeowner, right? That's why.
You've got now a nice
Thank you.
Yeah.
and her consulting business.
So Praveen is with the kids?
Family. So keep it separate. Do it separate LLC just for the business. Keep the more number of buildings you buy, the more number of LLCs you have. Don't, because each one shouldn't be contaminated. The minute somebody steals one, you're exposing the others.
In that area.
Absolutely, we'd love to. And I was actually going to say, how old are you?
22 now.
And are you going to help in the investing?
Yeah.
Gonna start? Okay, all right.
The plan is to partner in I'll be taking.
Please help yourself, please.
Thank you.
No, please. Yeah, I have got it.
Very nice.
Kevin.
No, I'll grab a slice.
Of course,
Thank you.
don't make it cold. Daniel, please. And then we can interact there.
What I was going to say is for anybody who is over 18,
Have a good night.
You had your folder too, right? Yes, you had your
Actually make
folder
sure
to
that
grab.
the unmarried adult kids are also getting a healthcare
And of course, I was
document. If
saying
something
all
happens to them, God
the-
forbid, and he's in the hospital, they won't talk to you. The doctors won't talk to you. Because, that's a really, I mean, especially when they go off to college, something happens or whatever, and they're in the hospital, so we always include that as part of the package of your state plan. It's a little, probably dark subject for you to think about, since you're probably thinking life is, infinite, but it's a good thing to just do as a planning technique. Just to get, And again, it depends on what kind, is it a revocable trust? I didn't spend time talking about a revocable trust, but there's a difference. Yeah, there's a difference between revocable and irrevocable. And make sure when you're reading, read only for New Jersey, because then there's a lot of confusion out there for different states. So, very nice meeting you. Absolutely. Okay. Ambarish. Okay, nice meeting you, Ambarish. And you?
Whenever you decide to call the office, just let me know that you found us through this seminar. That would be just
आपका कैसे चल रहा है? बढ़िया? अच्छा चल रहा है? कुछ आपने renovation वगैरह कराए हैं? नहीं? ऐसा ही? नहीं, मैं तो ऐसे ही पूछने जा रहा था। I'm glad आपने बिल्कुल अच्छे ढंग से किया, नहीं तो अभी बहुत खराब आ
And then that way, the line of credit doesn't affect your current mortgage, which is probably a decent rate. Yeah, you can do whatever you want with it. Just keep in mind that in order to qualify for the second mortgage,
I would
you would have to
always
show enough
suggest extra
income
money
to cover the existing mortgage and the new mortgage. If you rent it out, there is a guideline. If you rent it out prior to buying the new one, if you rent your vacating, they call it a vacating residence. You're vacating this residence to buy a new one. If your plan is to keep it and rent it out, we can use part of that rental income, but you would need to get a fully executed lease.
Thank you so
And
much
you
for
would need
coming.
to collect the first month's deposit prior to closing on the new one. And then we could use, say the rent is $2 a month, we can use 75% of that and add it to your
Look,
existing income.
This is a very, always people ask.
You may not
why
even
should
need
we
to. If
wait
I
for
run
what?
the numbers and you
Wait
have
for
enough
what,
income,
what
I
do you
wouldn't
think
even
will
do that,
change
because
and
it
that
just
will
creates more
make you buy?
paperwork. But if the numbers
Interest rates will come
indicate
down?
that the income ratio is too high, then we could try
Always
to
buyers are
rental,
thinking
and that
interest
way
rates
you
will
could
come down,
qualify.
right? Do you think?
I may or may not need it.
Then what?
Until,
What
I'd have
different
to
are you
look at it.
expecting?
But yeah, you definitely could get the equity from your current home and use that as a down payment. Yeah, for sure. You're very welcome.
It will be like, you have to be,
Right, so
no,
then refinance. Agar if the interest rate changes at all.
Your name is?
One or two percent
Drew,
or
nice to meet you.
refinance, but don't wait, and if interest rate will change, everybody will be buying that time. Then the competition will increase. So you can have one or the other thing, you cannot have both, right? If interest rate is high, then competition.
Go between anywhere near Princeton.
No competition. As we saw in other times.
I know, a lot of houses.
Yeah. So you can have one or the other thing, not both. So if you have to buy and in real estate investment, any like either for yourself or your investment purpose, always long term. So, like one of my brother-in-law, he is a very big high-time investor. He has like hundreds of investment properties, and I was talking to him that he teach me how to do it, and how you maintain so many properties, and he's doing it like so many years. So he said that he never buy, like usually have loss in one, gain in profit in another, and you adjust. And you never think like, okay, I'm buying for 1 or 3 years, it's for long-term investment.
Everybody talked to the
When you
buyers,
want to
but
do
nothing
years,
shown,
you
you know?
may not have that great profit, but in long term,
For
you will have.
example,
Do you work alone?
A real microclip, right?
Yeah? Your company, no?
200 के में
Just for
the example bता दो.
एक bedroom का. I know. 300K.
For one person?
Right?
No, the
interest
rates are not-
For
Oh, okay.
5 year I
Is it
want.
raised
So
enough high for
let's say it goes from 400 to 600.
Again, it depends
People
on.
who are living in a house, existing home.
Yeah.
So they get home inspection done every 3 years?
नहीं, just
That what-
अभी मार्केट में चल रहा है 10-20% आपको बैंक में देने का When you put 20% आपको कहीं पे भी आप बैंक में डालो, डिपॉजिट में डालो.
Is it recommended to do it in between?
10% increase.
I love that, but nobody really does. It's
It's expensive. How much you charge for it?
For a full home, it's like, you know, pay on, like,
That's what Deepa was talking about 10 to 20%. So like, you know what 10%?
did it for a little while. Some values,
Deepa
don't
was having,
get into the state licensing.
he had
Before we saw our liability.
Oh, really? Oh.
So it just becomes, the water gets a little
So
muddy.
you have to give a report to who? To who
The
though?
owner.
So,
But that be given, right? You
then
have
he's
to
saying
do
that
it.
if I buy something now and if I sell, then will I have to pay a tax on the gain, that capital gain?
Yes. You would have to pay capital gains.
But then I'm saying that then if you buy better, do a 1031.
Yes, again, I'm not the expert. I work with a company that they do that, that's specialty. So basically it works on investment property, so once you have an investment property and say you sell it for whatever reason, you have a certain amount of time, I believe it's 6 months, where you can invest the
Yeah, 6
capital
months,
gains
6 months.
into another investment property. But they have strict guidelines, you really need to work with somebody that knows the
It
guidelines.
has to be, we have done this a couple of times, it has to be either the equal, like if you, whatever you sold. So it has, for example, you're selling for 400, so you have to buy another property within 6 months, either for 400 or more. Cannot be, and within 6 months you have to identify, even if you don't know the transaction, but you have to identify less than that.
Yes.
So it has to be done, and if you, for example, like one time
The
it
same
happened
case
with.
apply when it's our personal own property.
No, it doesn't.
Not an investment.
No, it has to be an
No,
investment.
it has to be from investment.
But if on your personal property, say you were to move, are you married or single? Married, so you could, they wouldn't charge you a capital gains tax up to 500,000 for their income. So if you bought a property for 500,000, you lived there a few years, now it's worth $1 million, you can sell it, still not pay any capital gains. If it's over, say it goes up to $1.5 million, then you would have to pay a portion of that money. Yeah, but it's I forget what they call it, like a deductible basically. That only works on the primary, and then the 1031 only works on investment property.
So all the investment we have,
Well, yeah, on the investment property, you either have to, once you sell it, you have to pay whatever the capital gains are. But if you have a decent CPA, they're gonna write a lot of stuff off. Oh, you're a CPA? No. Oh, you're insane, you know, accountant, CPA, CPA just went that extra step to get the title. A lot of accountants I know do all the things, same things, yeah. Yeah, but yeah, as long as you know, structure and just get good advice, and, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, you're very welcome. You have my card, call me anytime if you have questions. Nice meeting you both.
Thank you for the pizza.
It's been crazy slow,
Get some
but
breads too.
seems to be picking up, thank God. I mean, I've done so many pre-approvals. I finally got this lady under contract. I kid you not, I must have written 53 approvals. I mean, so many offers.
But all those last for a month long, they're right, right? Where do you live?
Approval lasts for like 4 months. I can stretch it out a little longer. I don't wanna keep running to people's credit, but, this is the market, so competitive.
Really close to.
Crazy.
Cousins Lane.
You want bread?
One more whipped up.
Anyone wants bread?
No, thank you.
He was telling me he had
You want bread?
4 of his buyers, potential buyers, bid on the same house, he got 30 offers. So you figure that if he's doing 4 of those loans, at least over 30 offers, maybe one would win.
Out of the 30 offers, he had 4 of the
4 of the
buyers.
buyers,
Wow.
and he still didn't win.
Wow, I haven't had that
So
happen.
he told me, and I told me, he was sick, and they all called me, came from the house, and we really wanted to accept it. And they all felt good about it, and he felt happy about it. They all,
I've been doing, well, I was in real estate 10 years before I got into mortgages. I've been doing real estate for 30 years. I've never seen a quite market like that. And it's not even the rates. I used to sell real estate when the rates were 10%, 11%. It's the lack of inventory that's killing me. Hopefully,
because of the
it's
rate, people are not, people are so used to those 2 to 3%, they don't want to move. They don't want to downside or upside because they want to deal with it.
You have the government to think of that. All these years, they artificially kept the rates low, and then they jacked them up.
Fast.
You're too fast.
Because of the.
That's,
How's the little one now?
no.
I know. I want to sell. I was thinking, I'm not going to lose that rate, right?
Well, those 2.5%, 3% rates aren't gonna be, you know, I don't see them ever coming back.
1.99. Can you imagine? Why would I go?
I refinanced a couple years ago, I had an ARM, but like, it was a 5-year ARM, I think they had it for 10 or 12 years.
No.
Because the rate, when it started to adjust after 5 years, they went from 5% down to like 1 point, or 2 points. And it stayed there for years. When the rate started to go back up a couple of years ago, we refied into a 15-year fix. It was like 2 something. So,
That's still good.
no, it's still good.
Let me do
Yeah.
Doing his bachelor degree from Canada.
some changes are coming to
How old is he? It is 26.
And another is 27.
I have a 42-year-old boy, I have 2 grandkids, they're 14, twins, a boy and a girl.
How's the system of Cisco?
Yeah, good. My son, but you, did you say something about your son? You want to give us a yeah, my son, teenage to maybe 25, weird, strange. And then, yeah, I got it. And then 25 is starting to get better.
to make money.
But yeah, teenage years are great.
It wasn't very tough.
At least it was for me.
And just 2 days ago, I had a severe tragedy an email saying I'm sorry, this is something I know. So that was in January. February, the city contacts me and says, okay, I'm ready to move forward. And then I have CPA's husband. Very,
Makes it easy for the squirrels to get in too when they're hanging over the house. They jump right out of the house.
Yeah, you would think they would lose my brother-in-law.
It was on side, but the one, the front
She lives in a little, she's got like a 3-family home in Queens, She might be interested in a will, all that.
How easy is it? Yeah, to get to it. Well, that's sometimes too, when you gotta find it, you gotta do it manually, like the price goes up, I know they get it remote in there or.
I mean.
You quite won't forget because you always don't get the reminder by a low friendly.
You just cut it the other way. Yeah, sometimes. That's probably what it is.
It's not that deep, like once you stick the rope and then you cut it can be done by, also the right electrician or something. But I wasn't sure like whether, side curve, so if I mass it, it doesn't look good. My house is particularly on corner.
Open it up a little bit. People want to just do it and just get it done.
No, not yet.
It's not a list.
This is a list.
It's not a list.
As you said, you're going to constantly be in touch with
I see
the
something.
That was never his small thing. Do two things, you put two things on it, right? It's never ending.
what other things you can help me? Like, I'm home insurance, right?
That's a legal argument.
We are changing,
working.
Yeah.
I would like to monitor everything for this man.
Oxford Energy Program, that's like $10,000 to $12,000.
I wasn't sure about these things.
This is basically energy efficient improvement. And up to maximum $600 for tax benefit. Like this year, you can get property, energy efficient air conditioned compressor. You get up to $600. So if it's a $1,000, you can get $600 as a tax benefit.
That's what I call you or call me something.
So we do everything counts towards that, right? So what will we call?
Without anybody, you don't have to show anybody.
That's how I did it.
That's a very good thing. I'm investigating it, so you can send an application, you can send in a COP, take
But better to
otherwise
first
look at see if you qualify. And then
inspect
everything we can say, so it's
for the energy.
now the only reason that you change it, so again, the insulin is more stuff.
No, I'm not thinking on that. I was thinking the guy from the company. I think TSC.
Energy efficient, they would come and do the energy efficient.
Yes,
Yeah, ECG, I think, you put gas on the they come in and measure, the size of the window openings, the efficiency of the furnace, the efficiency of the air conditioning, how much insulation's in the house. And they kind of give you a report on how efficient the house is and what you can do to make those improve. Add more energy to the house. These kind of windows increase your energy efficiency. They used to do
Oh, wow, that's a rough ride.
Yeah.
What do you do that in your bills?
Which power company you have?
JCP and
So that's what I was like, better to do this.
It's not even that costing you.
That's
That's great. You're on it.
30 years. But it maintained very good.
There's not a whole lot of change in the internet. I mean, that would require more installation of it. Be 30 into R30. So well, not 12 because R38.
Traditional deductible against your income. Maximum is $7,000. You're less than below 7,000 below 50. Deducted from your income. 50,000 tax on 43. The Roth IRA, they don't get the deduction. They both grow tax deferred. A year, you don't owe any tax. Money out, the Roth goes out tax free.
How much energy
You've got 30 years. 67. That's a lot of compounding.
Load calculations so that you make sure you need a 5-ton air conditioner.
So tell me a little about do you have responsibilities, do you have mortgage, you have kids, so you have deductions, so you don't need a deduction of regular Roth IRA. Roth IRA definitely. And again, you can have both, you have 7,000 each. Yeah. Are you working outside the house?
Yeah, because they are so big also. It's about
Exactly the same.
You definitely have long IRAs, you've got a long time horizon. All that compounds, it makes a huge difference. The longer you wait, you pay something called the high cost of waiting, and that's really detrimental. I will send you this book.
What like electric and yes, price.
I mean, they do the same thing. Yeah, the values are good. I think the values of home IQ is good.
I mean, it covers the 32 miles. So after that, it will be on a highway. So it will regenerate the energy and I don't want it to go fully electric.
Yeah, that's I kind of feel the same way. You guys can have the option, right?
Because every day she drive like 25 to 30 miles. And in night,
You're in New Jersey, right?
plug in and morning. So most of the depending on the electric. After 32 miles, that depends sometimes 25 miles on the client. After that, it will go to on a gas. Gas is like you see the other
I'm ready to make the jump to full life.
Same $100 a month only goes to $357,000. Only goes to cost you
something goes wrong with that, you totally gone. Even I bought this car, even I bought this car, I asked the dealer, okay, what is the cost of the replacement of this? He mentioned like 16,000-17,000. I say it's almost 30% of the car. But at least in big stuff, battery is not there, at least I can run on.
Yeah, sometimes it's available to us if you've ever applied for anything else like Uber. So, but nevertheless, and then
I have street parking.
make sure they, in case they do
I want to charge it home, I run an extension cord across the sidewalk.
they don't see you, then underwriters will determine whether they can issue a policy. You've been turned down.
Yeah, home IQ I think does very similar, but home IQ also uses
Like house.
But I still think there's a chance because you're off the insulin.
They had like rooms here, and
Long-term care.
then all
Go into a nursing home, like expensive care, you can't take it.
First time when we flew there,
Sounds like you may need help with long-term care insurance. Not at all, not at all.
It's very nice, quality,
Nothing else real. I mean, it makes your lender so that the house has a buyer name for their money. That protects the lender.
When I moved, I thought like I will miss my old area Piscataway. So everything was nearby. After a branch one. Yeah. It's like little bit country feeling, Yeah. It's close, yeah.
We still go to the mall, we still go to the restaurants.
Yeah. Fishery Street and everything is very close. And the neighborhood is fine. My house is just opposite to White Oak Park.
50,000. Okay. Is it a term plan or a cash value plan? Yeah. About how much? That's a lot. You're young. You can be paying a third. You need to be your plan, no cash value, which that company uses to make a profit. They give you a small return. If you want to take that money, you borrow it. And if something ever happened to you, again, I don't know the type of plan, there's a good chance they'll pay the $350,000 they keep the savings. You're paying for $250,000.
I still got the thing from my parents, from 1879, it was like 14%. I said, you people complaining about interest rates now, they're complaining you.
If you'd like me to look at it, I'd be happy to look at it and show you in there what these things are. Every day, and usually half a day Saturday, sometimes till 3 o'clock on a Saturday. When do you travel on? Would you like me to come visit you?
It was crazy. I mean, it was 50 people on the line on the
That's a lot of responsibility, juggling kids.
One of the house, it wasn't with you, it was before the agent. That time actually I didn't secure any agent from my side.
What's
So
that?
I went to open
No, they become riders. They're minors, so they can't have their own policy. They become a rider on the policy. And then when they turn 25, they or something better than their plan.
680 is
So if they had 20,000 under your plan,
I offer like
5 times that amount, 100,000.
Okay. And then 25% of the down and everything.
Did they ever have a health
And
plan?
that house went to 790. Yeah. It was crazy. And I say, okay, this is nice.
Important for you to have a
We can't do it. It was also big house, but I told like they go to find good area because particularly here in Transburg, that was my work area. So I told
ingrained in
like,
the society.
There's housing on the market, right? That's the key.
We
Between the states and
And you're on the already, right? So that's great, you're already established.
There's never a
All right, so
perfect.
there's, what do you think next session, not just
Every single.
Sometimes
gotta go with good enough.
Downstairs, you have beautiful downstairs. That's where you spend 50% of the time. Very nice house, you have a solid
So I have your number here, and watch for the email from us, so 38787, hang on, okay. Here, take this. I ordered a whole bunch and it didn't arrive in time, so. All right, thank
My rule of thumb is that 20 people register, 10 will show up, unless you do like extreme Sure. Okay. So basically, so you probably have a lot of equity now. So home equity line is basically a second mortgage. They call it a home equity line because it's specifically, basically you're taking money out of your equity. So a lot, some of them are adjustable rates that goes with the market. So the rates, when the rates go high, your home equity line will go, the interest will go higher, the payment goes up. And it's not that that's bad, it's just different. We have one in-house, it's a fixed rate. The minimum was 40,000, I think it could go up to 100,000 depending on what happened. And what I like about that one, we just rolled it out last year. Prior to that, I did put, earlier last year, we have like 3 or 4 wholesale lenders that do home equity lines. And again, the one I did, we had to pay, it was like appraisal, we had to do appraisal. The in-house one does not require an appraisal, does not require a title.
I want to invest myself, I
So
said,
basically,
I have my
if
clients.
you're interested, I can send you a link. I don't probably get involved unless you have issues, which is good, I guess. But you go online, you put in your information, they do a salt so it doesn't show up on your credit.
Now you have to guide us.
Sometimes they're a little conservative on the value. But if you hold your property for 4 years, it's gotta have a lot of equity. So you put in your application, we'll ask you some questions. It gets a little tricky because they want to. So either you have to create like a IRS account, or you have to.
This is
get like a checking account. That's a quality of your checking and they can verify. Put it in the file. It's pretty easy. So can you do that? Have a great it's always fun. They're gonna give you all the system. Almost like AI. They're gonna give you a bunch of offers, 10-year fixed, 15-year fixed, 30-year fixed. This rate, or if you pay a little extra, you can get a lower rate. So we've got a bunch of different options. And then
whatever you do, food is gets cold, like,
the whole process is like 5 days. And then you can wire the money right into your account. Even the one I closed through the brokerage will be title. No, they'll say it's gonna be a little bit more expensive.
Thank you.
But the online,
Thank you for coming.
Nice meeting you all, take care.
Quick recovery.
She has a license, life license.
You do? Is it registered? Are you appointed?
Yeah, she's registered.
With who?
Sorry, with the HGI. So,
HGI is a company.
yeah, that's a broker company. So they do have all the different.
And are you active?
Yeah. No, she is not working.
Okay.
He does more and do that is
I like pasta. You never say no to pasta. It's funny.
Was good, I think it was good. Yeah. Was my section was okay?
Yeah, you were on the money. Yeah, you didn't say anything wrong.
When you were speaking, you don't know how people are like.
Right.
I was still, I didn't want you to cover too much of the maintenance part. I said
It was actually good because you were kind of more the upgrades and how it affects the value, and I was like the routine maintenance, so it kind of was different.
Yes. So when we got your slide, I removed some of mine because I was covering those.
Yeah?
Every 6 months when you change the battery,
Yeah.
make sure you check the grading, check the filters, check.
Hey, you be a realtor. I'll do it.
I know. That's why.
What did she say? Stay in your lane. No, it's fine.
No, I didn't know what you were presenting because.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what you wanted me to present, so I was like, I think he's good. I looked at the things, I said, I think I know what he wants. You know me, I'll talk about anything, so. How many were on the Zoom?
Like 5 people.
Oh, nice. That's pretty good. Better than the last one, right?
Much better, right?
Oh, there you go. That's what even I do when I do the CE classes. They're like, oh, there's only 3 agents that showed up, and there's three more than I would have not connected with, right? So it's a win. You know, when you're talking to 1 or 50, you can make a connection.
And I made almost 200 calls in the last 5 days. I'm serious. Whoever came,
You are persistent.
I really wanted this event to be much better than the last one we did. So that's why, and I brought in more people like estate planning and
Yeah, she was good. Yeah.
you know, financial
Very
advisor.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, so get some knowledge, maybe they get some business. Eventually, I'll get some business.
Yeah. And we all make connections. You know, I said, I don't mind doing these at all.
Is she on the board? Okay, then yes, you are on the hook.
फिर वो गई तो मैंने कहती नो मम्मी आई लव द कॉलेज ये मैं कल यूनिवर्सिटी से जरा 4 घंटे के गए नो आई विल
Jefferson You know, the last 2 weeks were good. It definitely picked up. Next week looks slow again. The last 2 weeks, you could say we were busy, and then next week we got like 4.
Capital, the company is called Answer.
I really wanted to
New Jersey, there's 5.
You know that Hillsborough house? We got him 4 Hope Court. We got him 35,000 credit.
Wow.
Medicare.
Good. That closed? Did it close?
No, we're closing April first week.
Oh, nice.
So that's planning.
Ah, that's a good credit.
For your doctor's business.
Good work.
It doesn't cover prescriptions.
I was like, you're still complaining. I said, don't complain.
Yeah. Suck it up. It's a house. You're gonna have to work on it.
Called e-telecom.
It's a good house. There's nothing major.
No,
like,
it's just
not falling apart.
No,
It's
just some of the old
delayed,
stuff.
maintenance.